Okay, so tonight's homework is all about how to write an opening and closing statement. We're going to learn how to put these two important pieces of the debate together and the major differences so the audience experiences them the way that they're meant to be experienced. So look for those pencils, take some notes, and let's get started. All right, so first for the debate team. It's really important that you guys share your facts. Everyone in the group should have all of the facts that you guys have collected on your topic so that anyone in the group can argue at any moment during the debates. Some of you might be quicker thinkers than others, so it's important that you have all of your facts ready to go. I would suggest that you create a shared Google Doc between you and the team members so that you can copy and paste all of your facts into one area, and then you can add them to your debate packet and Notability for the day of the debate. And it's really important that your team knows both sides so that you understand and are prepared for what their rebuttals and main arguments might possibly be. You're required to have a presentation for the opening statement, which is what we're going to talk about in tomorrow night's video. But basically, you need to have a Prezi or explain everything slides. Work together as a team to create it, but we'll talk more about that tomorrow. So just as a whole, it's important that the entire team knows all of these things. All right, so now we're going to talk about the opening statement. First of all, it has to have an intro. So at least 3 main ideas. Arguments must have assertion, reasoning, and evidence. Think about what you guys wrote for your essays. And unfortunately, if you are arguing the other side of what you actually wrote for your essay, then you might have to go back to your original Poplet where you decided on different ideas for both affirmative and negative sides. Don't forget, assertion is basically the statement that you're trying to prove for that particular argument. The reasoning is the because part of your argument, offering support for your assertion. And then finally, evidence is support for your reasoning, using some sort of historical examples, contemporary examples, statistic or scientific information. Maybe you've conducted a survey, maybe you have an expert quote or example that you found in your research. All of those work for evidence. And then finally, a conclusion. Wrap up your speech, remind the audience of what your main ideas and arguments are. So, very much like an essay, an opening statement has to have an intro, a body, and a conclusion. So, example for assertion. So, maybe you say that you're arguing the idea that boxing is a sport that should be banned because it's violent and it hurts participants. So your assertion might be boxing is intended to harm the participants. That's the whole point of the sport. Maybe your reasoning is, unlike other sports in which physical collisions and body damage occurs, the point of boxing is to actually do harm to an opponent. The goal in boxing is the knockout or unconsciousness that is a result of brain damage. Then when you get to the evidence, basically you need to state that boxers succeed in doing a great deal of harm. Levander Johnson died from brain injuries. Both Corey brothers passed away before the age of 55 from a lifetime of beatings. Michael Watson is confined to a wheelchair. Gerald McClellan is in a coma. Muhammad Ali has Parkinson's disease from second impact syndrome. And according to the Journal of Combat Sport, as many as 1,000 boxers may have died in the past century, with many thousands more seriously injured. So what you'll see here is that I've stated what my argument is for this first argument number 1. I've given my reasoning or support for that particular assertion, and then I went and found some facts and stuff to back up what I was saying for my evidence. So that's the way you need to focus the body of your opening statement. Go through 3 different arguments exactly that way. Okay, opening statement tips and tricks. Do you have repetition or slogan? A good speech will remind the audience of their main argument. A slogan like Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream repeats the point and the audience will forever remember it. So do you have a slogan? It's a good idea, something to think about. It's not make or break for the essay. You're not going to mark down points if you don't have it, but good teams can come up with some sort of slogan. Your opening statement should be 2 to 3 minutes in length. If you're handwriting it, it should be about 3 to 4 pages. If you're typing it out in Notability, just be thinking about how long it is and time yourself. As you practice your speech, time yourself and make sure. If you're below the 2-minute mark, you're not going to be considered proficient and you'll have to do it over again and your team will lose points. So the opening statement is usually more logical and expert-driven. So you're listing facts, evidence. The closing is more emotional. So leave emotional appeal to the closing statement person. Use a great amount of persuasive and academic language. It's going to make your team and yourself sound smarter. And just know that you're going to be interrupted during the opening statement with the other team's rebuttals. Be prepared. Practice your speech. Possibly even write in your notes or note cards where you can pause and allow the other team to speak. It's okay to have them stand up there and just wait until you allow them to go. You're in charge of that whole process. So practice your speech accordingly and know when you'll be able to stop and allow them to speak without getting flustered or miss a spot in your speech or forget to say something. So practice makes perfect. Okay, so the closing statement is a lot shorter than the opening statement. So you still have to have an intro, body, and conclusion, but consider it a lot shorter than the opening. You're going to have to restate the 3 main ideas of your arguments that were presented in the opening statement. Remind the audience of your most important ideas. Do not introduce new information. This is very important. You're just repeating what was said in the opening statement. Use the same slogan or repetition that was used in the opening statement. You guys are a team. Both your opening and closing should sound similar in style. In order to do this, you have to communicate with each other. The closing statement should make an emotional connection with the audience. So where the opening statement was a lot more logical and full of facts, closing statements looking for more of an emotional connection. And when I say emotional, it doesn't have to be a sad connection. It could be a funny, entertaining, whatever. You're just appealing to the emotions of the audience so that they vote for your team. Use imagery or figurative language, similes and metaphors. And the closing statement should be at least 1 to 2 minutes long. You will not be considered proficient if it's below a minute, and you'll have to redo it. All right, closing statement tips and tricks. The closing statement is the most important part of the presentation. People are most likely to remember the closing because it's what they heard last. So the closing should summarize the main ideas of your debate and leave the audience wanting to vote for your team for the win. Emphasize your key points of your debate. Don't introduce anything new. There are not any rebuttals during this section, so you're not going to be interrupted. Practice your speech from start to finish. Really work on the delivery of your speech, making eye contact with the audience and getting them to say, wow, that was an amazing closing statement. Sometimes a presentation, while not required, can really help your emotional connection with the audience. So I'm not requiring that you have a presentation. I am requiring that you have one during the opening statement, but you don't have to have one for the closing. However, if you're going for the win, it makes your team look more prepared if you have a closing statement presentation and the other team doesn't. So keep that in mind. All right, what are the differences really between opening and closing? Well, the opening statement uses logic and expert arguments mostly, whereas the closing is more emotional. The opening statement has organized intro, body, and conclusion, and the closing statement has a much shorter intro, body, and conclusion, but the organization is still the same. The opening statement must have a presentation to go along with it. The closing statement should repeat the most important arguments and facts stated in the opening statement. The opening statement will be interrupted with rebuttals from the other team. The closing statement will not be interrupted. No one is allowed to talk during your speech. You will be able to go from start to finish. The opening statement needs to be 2 to 3 minutes in length, whereas the closing statement is only 1 to 2 minutes in length. The opening statement should use very persuasive language, quotes, survey statistics, facts, interview information if at all possible, whereas the closing statement is the last the audience hears from your team, so you need to make it count. All right, that was a lot of really good information. Honor students, don't forget to do the digital whisk. I hope you're getting excited for the debates, because I am. I'll see you in class tomorrow. Thanks, guys.